the delta trajectory of the dismissive avoidant in a relationship. When a dismissive avoidant first enters into a relationship, the delta or the gap between how they feel about you and the fears that they have, like fears of vulnerability, fears of commitment, fears of being needed, and fears of being trapped, that kind of thing. There's a really big gap between those feelings and those fears. And that's because in the beginning, their feelings can be really strong for you, but their fears have not really been activated yet. Then what happens is, as time goes on and there's increases in closeness, up levels in commitment is usually where I see this. Usually my clients can point to it. We got a pet together. We moved in together. They met my family. We talked about the future. We talked about having kids. Whatever it is, they can usually point to the time where that delta really starts to change, and the dismissive avoidant experiences an increase in these deep core fears, and the delta closes. And as the delta closes and they're operating out of that much smaller margin, you will start to see a shift. And it will, as the delta gets smaller and smaller, typically the sort of coldness, the quietness, the inconsistency, and maybe in communication, lack of communication, that will increase commensurate to the delta going down. Then eventually there comes a time where the fears and the feelings are on par, or they may even convince themselves that they have far more fears than they have feelings. And this is typically where they completely shut down and pull the rug out from under you and end the relationship, because there's just not any safety. There's no safety net in that space yet. So I hope that gives you an understanding of kind of what's happening with their nervous systems. And always, I'm offering these perspectives not so that you can go and try to necessarily fix someone. You can certainly offer them information, but more so because I want you all to have self-compassion and understanding for why these things happen, so that you can depersonalize it. Because while it is absolutely true that if you are in an anxious avoidant dynamic, you both need to be responsible for the ways that you attract each other and trigger each other once the ball gets rolling. For both an avoidant person or a very, I'll say, speaking of dismissive avoidant person or an anxious preoccupied person, they could be in a relationship with a secure person and those wounds can still be activated, or they can deactivate. So it's not something where if you were perfectly secure, you can keep them from experiencing this dynamic, because it's something that can come simply from their perception of too much closeness, even if it's actually a healthy amount of closeness that a very secure person would want. I hope that makes sense. So if you have experienced the change in delta in a relationship with a dismissive avoidant, please comment below and share your experience if you're comfortable.